report. In case you don't know, I'm the executive director for the National Libertarian Party, and I serve at the pleasure of the chair and at the direction of the Libertarian National Committee. So we do basically what we're told to do, and one of our primary missions is just the very fundamental core operations: processing memberships, caging money, making membership cards, sending out thank you cards, renewals. Also, we have the pledge program. We produce and publish a monthly Liberty Pledge. We process membership renewals and keep them renewed and send thank yous and all that stuff. That takes up a chunk of what the staff does, just the very fundamental stuff. We also publish LP News, maintain the website. Though others do Facebook and Twitter, we do some participation with social media. Not our focus at the moment. And then we get involved in all kind of miscellany, including lawsuits. A lot of involvement with ballot access, especially during election years. And so now I know that there's always this issue of should National do more to support the affiliates. And what is it that we do? And there's this line item in the budget that allocates something like $5,000 to affiliate support, which I first need to explain is misleading, because a good bit of what we do does involve affiliate support. First of all, one of our staff people, Bob Johnston, he wears several hats, and one of them is to support candidates in the states where there's no strong affiliate organization. So there's about 12 states that have said, we'll handle that on our own, thank you very much, in which case our support is simply passing on the inquiries that we hear about. In the other 38 states, we help candidates get started. We let them know what the ballot requirements are to the degree we know, and Bob has developed a manual of ballot access on all the different states. So he informs the affiliates both what it takes for the party to get on the ballot, if that's an option in the state, and the individual candidates. We give them information about what they need to know to get on the ballot. We also provide them fundamental campaign information, reading materials, links, some fundraising fundamentals. We like to coach people because one of the things that we see so often happens, most of us in this room have been around a long time, right? You've been with the party for multiple years. You've probably seen the cycle of libertarians saying, I'm going to win, or I'm going to get 30% and 5%. And one of the things we're always having to manage is that disappointment when someone has been led to believe that they're going to do much better than they do. Not that we ever want to discourage possibility. We're the party of possibility, right? So we want to be optimistic. But we also like to tell candidates they don't always get it the first time or the second time or the fifth time. But we like to start to get them to understand, look, you make a big difference running for office in numerous ways. There's numerous benefits to your running. We caution you not to be advising people you win unless you actually have poll information, or maybe you finish second in the preliminary and out of 6 candidates and there's 3 open seats. Okay, maybe you really will win a seat. But to be cautious about what you provide. It doesn't have to be negative. It can be portrayed in very positive terms. We give them suggestions on petitioning, and often refer them to petitioners and help them get on the ballot. So we do a lot, mostly in the states that aren't the big affiliates, okay, for these affiliates that are not yet well organized. And then for new affiliates, sometimes they really just need to reorganize. We help them understand what is necessary in their state to file as a party, what the reporting requirements are. That's something we also inform the candidates about. So probably a lot of the stuff that you're used to doing in some of the bigger states like Texas, which is part of your normal operation. We carry that load for the other 38 states and the candidates in those states. We provide data dumps, so basically you get all our data, and we do that monthly. There's always this controversy about you should provide this data, not that data, in this format, not that format. Everybody has a different opinion about how that should be done. So we just do our best to kind of pick a method that makes as many people as happy as possible. And so providing that data and getting those inquiries to the state affiliates. All kind of miscellaneous things come up. we're in an emergency, we're trying to get ballot access, we can't get our email list working. Now, I'm not opening this up as an invitation because we don't have the time to do this. But in emergency situations, we've sent out emails to the list when that state was not organized, didn't have their act together, didn't have a system set up with eye contact or somebody like that, an email marketing system, and have helped. We don't get involved in a lot of lawsuits, but key ballot access lawsuits we often get involved in. We do a lot of just logistics of trying to coordinate whether our lawyer is available to help for that, or help them find another lawyer, help, we're always talking to Richard Winger of Ballot Access News to try to get clear on what's happening in this state, and what's the pending legislation, and what's somebody doing about it, and what can we do? What can we do to possibly help? For example, in Montana, they've been threatened with Top 2. There was a brief incident in Massachusetts, I'm hoping it's gone, where a Republican was floating the idea of doing a ballot initiative to enact Top 2 in that state. Of course, we had the wonderful victory in Arizona where it was defeated. So things like this that threaten us as a party, we will get involved with that on case-by-case basis where we think it's either within our mission and where we think we can be helpful. So, and then there's all kind of miscellany that come up. Stuff I don't really want to talk about with a videotape running, but problems come up in states, problems with candidates, publicity problems that we want to handle. We talk to the state party officials, we talk about how to handle it, we get a game plan down so that we can coordinate with media. Media ebbs and flows in terms of how many inquiries we're getting, but where we see a possibility that this would really be more appropriate for a state party to take this interview, we'll see if we can arrange somebody in that state to do the interview. So those are some of the examples of things we do. If you really look at all the effort that's put into what we do, a pretty substantial chunk of it, I'd say at least 30–40% of what we do, is one way or another some form of affiliate support. And of course, to do more of it, we're going to need to get bigger and raise more money to be able to do more. But we certainly want to. We realize that where the real action is happening is in the affiliates and in the campaigns. And there's only one campaign that's really a national party campaign, and that's a presidential and vice presidential ticket. The rest are state campaigns. So you are where the action is, and we want to support what you're doing. One of the things that we do with LP News is we really have been putting as much of a focus as we can, and more of a focus, on our candidates, and as well as our activists. And we really want to highlight our successful campaigns. It doesn't mean winning necessarily. It means they got out there, they got a message out there, they ran a good, strong campaign, they brought people into the party, they got a media interview, maybe they got into debates, whatever. We want to celebrate and share that information with all our members because everybody wants to hear that. So we want to publicize the campaigns, and one of the things I really want to ask of you is we want to celebrate and honor those activists that are behind all this, who are not necessarily visible, who are not the candidates, but who are critical to these successful campaigns and to your state parties. We had a spread in Libertarian Party News on ballot access heroes in the September issue, and we highlighted some activists in the last issue of last year, the December issue. We asked states for input, and we got some, and we did feature articles on those activists. The last one, we didn't get any affiliates to give us any ideas. So, but I know they're out there. I know there's a lot of really great activists doing great stuff in your state affiliates, and I hope you will join me in realizing and attempting to give recognition to these people, because they're indispensable. We can't live without them. We don't have the budget to pay people to do all the work that these people are doing, and the only thing we can do is thank them and acknowledge them. So I ask you to join me in that mission and let us know and give us specifics so people can really see this is what this person did. They spent months, they researched, they went and had these meetings, and all the things that people do to make things happen. We want to celebrate that. And some of the mechanism we have to do that is LP News and LP.org and our social media. So yeah.
I just want to say I am pleased the last 6 months or so the National's been much better at soliciting affiliate updates and trying to get this news and share, because the last couple issues of LP News I'm like, oh, this is what I remember LP News being, lots of great updates from all the affiliates, and as a member, I like reading that. If I'm not one of the hooked in people, being able to read this news. So I do think that that's a nice positive change I've definitely seen, speaking as a member and a state chair. That I think that's a really good thing, and I hope to see more of it, and the communications coming from national.
Well, it's certainly something that's a regular feature of LP News. And when you say more, when I think of more, I think of, well, I want to hear from some of the states we never hear from. In terms of more, I don't know if you're talking about more words.
Well,
because we already
there seems to be a
3
better
pages.
effort on contacting the states and saying, hey, send us stuff. I think, was it 2 issues ago, I think almost every single state had an update.
We've never had more than, since
Well,
I've
okay,
been
it's,
on board.
more than
It
20.
seems like it,
It's a
because
lot.
there's so much. I don't think we've ever had even 20. It's close to 20. 18 is typical.
But
15,
I mean,
18.
it's several pages. You see, oh, wow, here's
Yeah.
another state. Here's another state. It makes
Yeah.
it makes it seem like we're all doing more.
Absolutely.
And if you're the only libertarian in your town, you don't really know what's going on. I think that it sort of gives them hope that okay, stuff's happening and might inspire. And just knowing, if I read it and I'm like, oh, there's nothing from my state, nothing's going on.
Yeah.
But even if there's just a paragraph, that there's we're out there.
And I'd love, how many of you are the decision makers for submitting something in your state? And how many of you routinely do submit? Sometimes, routine, some. Yeah, and that's okay. I certainly encourage all of the states to do this. I also recommend we have said we want to limit it to 250, 300 words. And a lot of them are around 300. Some of them have gone to 400 and more. And one of the things that we find is when they're longer, they're less readable. I encourage you, keep them punchy and newsy and exciting. And you'll actually get more people reading them that way. So I think it's worth taking the effort because we don't edit them. We do a little bit of editing for grammar, punctuation, spelling, and sometimes people submit them in the first person. And it's way out of context when you've got a bunch of news, and all of a sudden, well, I did this, and some of this guy's talking like it's from his diary. And we've reworded those sometimes to make them more like a news article. So please keep them in the third person. If you put a rah-rah at the end, or, please join us in this, or something like that, a quick message at the end, that's fine. But we want to keep a more professional format. It looks better, it reads better. Pat?
Yeah, I wanted to comment. I'm glad you discussed that affiliate budget item. That the national headquarters has always done affiliate support, regardless of whether there was a separate budget item. And I think a lot of people took that out of context. So I'm glad you addressed that. One other question about database. Back many years ago, when Razor's Edge first came in, it seemed there was a long, lingering controversy about databases and whether it was working well. Do you feel that that is coalesced and is pretty much that the affiliates understand what they're getting and it's not an issue anymore?
There's always someone for whom it's an issue.
Okay.
Whether we're making most of the people happy most of the time, I think so. Now, there's a lot of different areas where people have concerns. There's some people who say, oh, we should have a very sophisticated contact management, CRM, integration into the website, and we should be, there's some who have advocated we should be giving much more congressional and voter information that you can purchase online. So there's people who are really wanting to see it much more technologically sophisticated or much more data intensive. And then there's some affiliates who say, you're giving me too much junk, just give me this. And we have all these different affiliates who are at all these different levels of development and able to use the information we give them. So, most of them are doing fine with what we give them as far as we know. And many parties, sadly, are just not that active. And a spreadsheet, and they're just not even using the data. They're not even using the data we give them. So what we really need to do is grow, get bigger, have more states organized and active and running campaigns so there's a demand. And then we'll figure out where to take it from there. But it's a kind of a wide open issue, and you'll get a lot of different opinions about it. So, any other questions about affiliate support? Yeah.
I realize this is probably the budget. there seems to be maybe a training aspect or organizational development aspect. I mean, especially for the smaller states where, a couple people get burned out and that's it. They're in the desert for a couple years until someone else comes up. And I'm wondering if, I have no idea if National can even do this or be on like a repository of sort of an institutional knowledge. And hopefully the state affiliates are doing that, but some of them just can't, of maybe having something in place for, okay, how do we jump start this, or what happens if, we have a couple states that just sort of dissolved and new people come together. I'm wondering, and like I said, this may not even be something that the national office can do, but some sort of way like, okay, so you want to have a state affiliate, here's what you do. Yeah. Whether it's simply a best practices thing, or here's just a checklist, these are all the things you might want to need to take care of, just from a developmental organizational point of view.
And it's such a broad question that you're asking.
I know.
There's so much to it, and I know you know that. There's two immediate answers that I would point to, and one is get a campaign or a project going, usually a campaign. Get a campaign. Find an office to run and find a candidate and get a campaign going, because that is what libertarians really, and people really start to coalesce around. And it's what the party's for, running campaigns. And so if you have a really inactive party, if you can find one candidate doing one thing, I mean, the DC party hadn't been doing much in a long time, and a couple people right in the neighborhood, we got together in the headquarters office, and they said, what are we going to do? And I said, run a campaign. And other people were thinking the same thing. It wasn't my idea. But, what can you do? Well, I ended up running Bruce Mangers for delegate, which is like the DC version of a congressman. And he got ballot status for the first time for Washington, DC, and it was a great campaign. And it gave people stuff to do. So when you don't have any campaigns going on, it's a little harder. You can do outreach efforts and OPH booths, and those are fine. You can do meetups just to keep the social fabric going and such. And I'm sure you guys can come up with way more ideas of things you've done than I can think of off the top of my head. One of the purposes in introducing this game, Who's Driving, is it's something you can do when there's nothing going on that gives people training as well, and gives people something to actually organize around. It's just one of many examples. Yeah.
Didn't George Phillies at one point write a handbook for affiliates?
He may have. I don't know. I think.
I think I saw him go by it.
Yeah. There may be one.
That was a while ago.
As I mentioned, Bob Johnson on staff has an organizing handbook, and that's for the nuts and bolts of filing and reporting and stuff. But it's kind of a wide open issue, and it really is a matter of leaders coming forth and doing something. I mean, the way we got active in Massachusetts in '96, when the party was happening in a couple campaigns here and there, and I and a bunch of others really accelerated the activism when someone came up to me and said, Harry Brown was our nominee at the time. A guy from Maine, Mark Sensi, you might know him, was around at the time, and he said, we want a libertarian event, and we can't get Harry Brown to come to Portland, Maine, but maybe we can get him to come to Boston. Let's have a New England event. And we put on this incredible event that raised $35,000 for the Brown campaign, and a rally of 650 people at Faneuil Hall, a big venue in downtown Boston. And a bunch of us just threw ourselves into it, and created this event. And it was around a campaign. And it just really started to create a tremendous amount of energy in the Massachusetts party at the time. That's what we did. I'm sure many of you have stories about things that you've done and projects and campaigns that you created and generated and moved forward that had the same effect, right? How many people have been doing that? You all, a lot of you have been candidates, a lot of you have done this, you know this. So.
Is there a repository that this kind of information could get stored in where everybody else can get at it?
You know, what I recommend, because this is just such a broad subject, but what I did when I came in green to the party, green to political activism. I had some marketing and organizational and management skills from my private sector, but I really didn't know what I was doing. And I asked around and asked, who knows, who's done this before? Who knows what they're doing? You know, Michael Cloud has a saying, some people reinvent the wheel, other people reinvent the flat tire. You know, you can avoid mistakes by asking and talk to the people who've done it and who were successful. Because a lot of people will have opinions, but you want to find the people who've been successful at whatever it is you're trying to do. Whether it's fundraising, whether it's organizing, whether it's forming a campaign. Haven't some of the strongest campaigns get organized? What did they do? And talk to those people and take a lot of notes. That's how I did it. That's how I started to figure things out. Any other questions on affiliate support before we go to fundraising? Yeah.
And don't jeopardize your job with the answer to this, but what's the, okay, it's a two-way relationship, the national office and the affiliate. Is there anything the affiliates could be doing that would make the national office, that would smooth operations with national, or things that you would like to see more, other than like, you know, okay, news stories and such, an operational point of view that you think would make things smoother or help national, help the affiliates, of what coming from us to you?
Nothing really jumps out at me. One thought, and I don't actually know, probably should, what the agreement is between the national and the affiliates about sharing data with us. Is there none?
I don't think so.
I don't know if there is one.
Yeah.
That's part of the
I mean,
SLA discussion.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we would like it, and, you know, I think it'd be good for that to be a two-way street, but that's not my decision. And so you guys can powwow about this and ultimately decide what you want to do. And I think it's great that you're having this conference because you're getting together, you're talking about these issues, and this is a good thing to do. Keep us, one of the things that we could really use help on, Bob Johnson, another one of the things he does, we make a great effort, and we're now sort of partnering with the Facebook team just to find out about candidates, especially in the states where they're not active. But some states that are active that don't tell us about your candidates. And so we can't list them at lp.org unless we know about them. So we want to know about the candidates. And when elections are over, which unfortunately in some cases the local races, this is when we learn about some candidates. Someone sends us a link to an article about the election that happened yesterday, and we're going, ooh, news to us. So, and I imagine within your own states you have that problem, that you didn't know that somebody was running, right? And they didn't tell you. So we all have this problem. But whenever you get information, vote totals or just anything about a candidate, please tell us. Now, we're in the process of revisiting our policy about who gets listed on the website. And this is a decision that will be made by the LNC or by Jeff Neal, not by me. We've made a recommendation, which is basically, it's very complicated to set clear criteria. You don't want to say on the ballot, because that may be happening too late in the election. Or maybe even a write-in candidate is somebody that's worth talking about, okay? You don't want to say been nominated, because there may be no nomination. It may be nonpartisan. There's all these different situations. There can be fusion candidates. You know, there's all these different scenarios. So basically what we have recommended, and this will be decided by the LNC or by Jeff, is that if it's listed at the state party, if a candidate's listed at the state party website, or if the chair blesses, says list them, that's what we're going to do, and that's generally what we've been doing. Now, the LNC probably will have some kind of policy where they can overrule that. If there's a, you know, we had one situation where a state chair was saying no to candidates, and others in the state party were saying yes to that candidate. What do we do? In that case, we want to say, well, you should have a bylaws process in your state to resolve that issue, so the state committee can overrule the chair, for example. And then we'll go with what your bylaws have said is now the recognized candidates. The LNC may want to overrule for whatever reason, either put someone on or take them off because of some whatever reason. And there can be all kinds of situations. Potential very negative publicity, potential very positive publicity. You know, there's all these different situations. So you could help us work that out. You know, I'd like to see a real cooperative agreement between the affiliates and the LNC. Let's work this out. Let's figure out a policy that makes sense. And that's what we'll do. And in the absence of a policy, we're kind of going with what we've been doing in our best judgment. But it's a potential area for conflict because situations come up. So let's get this one handled and get it resolved so that we have a policy and they're really, you know, it's clean and clear. That would be helpful. Beyond that, that's all that comes to mind, but thank you for asking. Okay, you want to talk about fundraising?
Sure.
Okay, so we could be talking about fundraising for an affiliate or fundraising for candidates. Are we talking, was there one or the other that you were more interested in?
Affiliates.
Affiliates, okay. How many people have sent fundraising appeals to your own members? Okay, how did you do? I mean, it's, yeah?
Doesn't about what we expect.
Okay. Now, most affiliates aren't doing this. They're not even communicating with their members regularly. And you really don't, you can't be fundraising if you're not regularly communicating with your members. You need to be in touch with them, and you also need to be making a pitch. You know, you need to ask yourself, why would they give us money? Well, you need to be able to show them what you're doing. And the fundraising I've done has usually been, well, I do it now for the National Party, but it's, you know, most of my history has been for campaigns. And I am very much a believer in you do things that you believe in your heart and soul, not just your opinion, but you've tested it out there. That you've got something that matters. You're doing something that matters. And that's why you're going to be asking for money. We're growing the party. We're holding events. We're recruiting candidates. What are some of the things that you're all doing that you think, let's just brainstorm here. What are some of the things that you do as an affiliate?
Lobbying for ballot access reform.
I'm sorry?
Lobbying for ballot access reform.
Lobbying for ballot access reform, so you can get on the ballot. What else do affiliates do?
Volunteer outreach, not just outreach events, but training and opportunities for them to be involved with other libertarians.
Opportunities for the members themselves to be involved. What else do you do? Now keep in mind also that a good portion of our national members do nothing but send checks. A lot of people are busy. A lot of people that we need are busy businessmen, community leaders who don't have time, but they'll write a check. And they're very, very valuable. So what are some things that we are doing for them? Ballot access would certainly be one.
Initiative drives.
Initiative drives? Ballot initiative drives?
Ballot
Okay. How many have been involved in ballot initiatives in your state? That's great. All right. Anything else?
Well, recruiting candidates, supporting supporting the local county organizations, doing some legislative initiatives during the session.
Okay. So any of these things can be used, and you need to stop and think. And fundraising is far more difficult than it looks, I will admit. It is not an easy thing. So you got to kind of get out of your own head and your everyday stuff and think, and remember, okay, what is the value we're creating here? And then you have to get specific. And you have to say, if you give us money, this is what we'll do with it. And you need to be committed to then doing that thing. And then what you want to do is 6 months later, 3 months later, I do it more frequently, but I know that most affiliates just don't have the resources to do it. You go back and said, we did this with your money, and this is the impact it had. Thank you very much. And now, here's our next project, okay? So you want to be, you're in the marketplace. You're selling them what you're doing, and it's something. It can be very difficult to do it, and I know because I have to spend a lot of time myself. You might want to get a team of people and brainstorm. What are we doing that matters to our members? Why would they keep supporting us? And what specifically can we promise next? And who's going to implement it? Who's going to be committed to implementing that so that we can say we did it? When I was running ballot initiatives, it was pretty clear. We were running a campaign. And our biggest challenge for when we needed 100,000 raw signatures to get on the ballot was to get those signatures and get on the ballot, okay? And once you do it once and you succeed, you come back, oh, she got on the ballot last time, then you do it again and you succeed, oh, she succeeded twice, you do it again. Oh, every time I give her money, she actually gets us on the ballot. It is very important that you actually fulfill on your promises. If you don't think you can do it, if you don't have a team in place to fulfill it, think of another idea or scale back your goals to something that you think you can actually do. Yeah.
That reminded me of something of, it's better to succeed small and fail big. I mean, a lot of members, if libertarians are very tight with their money, it's that fundraising to them is very different. They want to know exactly what it's going for. It seems we all like these big projects, but you know, if you need to raise, say, $100,000 for something, you probably won't do that. So small, so they start small, have a small success. You know, whatever we needed $500 for, you know, I don't know, new signs for the office or a new website, and like, hey, we did it, great. And it seems like maybe smaller may be the way to go to get things started, because you said success built on success. Members
It does. And then don't be shy about bragging about it. You know, let them know you did it and acknowledge the particular people that were involved, but above all, acknowledge them. Because you gave, X happened. Because you gave, Y happened. Without your support, without your indispensable support, this would not have happened. Thank you. Thank you. Which gets me to my next topic on fundraising. How many send out thank you letters every single time you get a donation?
Email
Thank you letters? No.
Or postcards, or something in the mail?
We have a
In the
dollar
mail?
amount
No.
threshold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, even, it's fine if it's $5 or $10, actually. How many send out an acknowledgement every single time you get at least $10 in donations? Okay, this is something you need to start to make a religion. You need to make a religion. Some will complain, oh, you're wasting postage, you sent me a letter. There will always be a certain %, who complain about that. But the fact of the matter is, human nature, people like to be acknowledged. And not only are you thanking them, but you're reminding them why they gave and how you're going to use their money. So tell them. Thank you notes, it takes planning. It's something you've got to really have the structure and the volunteers and the money to do. But in theory, it's going to be a lot less than the money you're bringing in. You do have the money to do that, and you need to make it a regular practice. Thank your members. Matters hugely. Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this, but we always send it. We always send it at least an email. Thank you. You know, anytime someone gives us anything to acknowledge them and stuff. We never really. I think it's logistics. Someone's got to take the time to write a postcard and all that. Is it that much of an order of magnitude difference, even just sending a thank you postcard versus a very nicely worded email to them?
Email is certainly better than nothing. And if you're at a point where you just really can't do that, email is certainly better than nothing. But also keep in mind you're not going to have emails for a lot of people. And a lot of people will never see your email because it'll go into a folder, it'll get lost in spam or in their busy inbox. They just won't even see it. Now, so it's better than nothing. But as soon as you can move to actual mail postcards and make it a regular thing, you might find, and enlist somebody out there, you might find a retiree. We had a woman in Massachusetts who used to work with me in the private sector, and she was retired, and she was our thank you note person. And she even moved to New Hampshire at one point, and she still did them, and we would send her the extract from the database. These were postcard thank yous, the cards, and so she had to listen. She would hand address them. It makes a difference when you hand address them as opposed to using labels, even if the backside is entirely just a printed, message and a copied signature from your state chair or whoever's signing it. But it makes a difference to handwrite that. Yes.
Well, we use that whenever I was fundraising for LPCO. We use those donations to send out bumper stickers with the thank you note and a newsletter and maybe a couple other things, or if they send enough, they got a libertarian cap.
Great thing. If you can do that, that's a great way to do it. Premiums,
You gave.
premiums, pins, and all kinds of stuff that you can do. Yeah.
We run a monthly recurring program. What do you recommend from a thank you perspective there?
That's a good question.
On renewal?
Well, you know, at the national level, we actually have a whole nother publication we do for them. And that's a pretty big commitment. I've done pledge programs in the past where we actually did kick out a postcard every single month they sent it. You could do that. And you could do it for a certain financial level. If someone's donating $50 or more a month, that's pretty substantial. You might want to say at a certain amount, they're going to get something every single month from us. Thank them, remind them. Because, you know, time goes on, they don't hear from you, they're looking at their credit card statement. What's that $25 I'm giving every month? Why am I doing that? Do I really need to do that? Knock it off. And you want to retain those people. They're very valuable. So if you can possibly swing it, I recommend that. Fundraising letters are hard to write. There's no question. They're the hardest thing there is to write. And the best thing I can say is test. If you can't get an expert, if you don't have the resources to bring in somebody who's a professional fundraising letter, or you don't have the luxury of having a volunteer who happens to have that skill, at a minimum, test. You know, you might find some people, and testing's always tricky because we tend to just sort of give our own opinions rather than standing back and letting someone else give an opinion. But try showing it to a few members. Now, what they do in really sophisticated fundraising is they do split testing, they do all kinds of sophisticated ways of testing a message. Split testing meaning you have a list and you send half of it this one and half of that one, you see which one gives you better returns, and then you take the more successful letter and you send it to the wider list. That gets very expensive. And what's the average membership you have? Like a few hundred, 300-500 per state is the national average.
Number of members?
Number of members that you have is, you know, a few hundred basically. In smaller states, much smaller.
Right.
When it's that small, you know, you can't even test. So, but you can try to run by the fundamental concept of it. Call a few members and say, hey, we're thinking of doing a fundraiser, and for this purpose, what do you think? And just see what kind of feedback you can get. That's sort of a cheap way you can get some very anecdotal feedback. It's not scientific, it's not the bottom line. But to a large degree, if you just do it, it's going to matter. And it's very hard to be disciplined to do it. So what I'd recommend is you look at what you have for your affiliate, what you have for money, what you have for time, and set a schedule for yourself. Maybe you're going to write, maybe you've never done them, and you're going to do one this year. Maybe you've done a few, and you're going to say, I'm going to do one every quarter this year. And that's going to be our permanent policy. But start to set a goal for yourself just to do it. Because just communicating matters, assuming you have a reasonably appropriate message, okay? And as you do it, save every letter you get. Start a binder where you save the letter and you save the data on how many people got it, how many responded, what was the average donation, what was the total revenue you brought in, what was the total cost, and what was your net. And put that in a binder with every single one of your fundraising letters. And then as you do this, if you do this quarterly, this year or next year, by December of next year, you're going to have 6 or 7 letters, and you're going to look them over, and you're going to say which ones worked, which message worked. Yeah.
One thing that I found to help with what you're talking about is to buy the kind of cheap colored copy paper. Use a different color as a response for each letter that you're sending. Put codes in so you know this was the one that we sent in January that was focused on monthly contributions versus something that was sent in March that was about membership.
Right.
And maybe that was on green paper and this one was on blue.
Yep.
And it'll help you as they're coming in for the ones that mail it in, at least give you a good idea of what's coming back because of the thing that you sent.
We always put mail codes on every mailing that we do. And when we enter it in the database, we put that code on it. So you can easily run statistics and find out what's happening. So if you have the code, you don't need a color-coded reply card because the code should be sufficient. But one thing you may want to do, and what we do, is you want to use colored envelopes. Ways that you can get people to open envelopes is don't have them look like the other everyday white business letter envelope. Use a colored envelope, or, this is a very good idea, especially because you've got small enough numbers, this is really doable. Get a volunteer who will hand address the outside of the envelope. Don't print it on labels. This is for the thank you card and for the outgoing fundraising letter, because it will get a dramatically higher open rate if you hand address those letters. And you have an event at someone's house, you say we need 10 people to knock this off in an evening, and you get an assembly line going, and this thing is the kind of thing people like to volunteer for because it's mindless and they can be talking to their fellow libertarians while they're doing it, right? And they love that. It doesn't require training or planning, it's just show up and get to work. And so you can knock off a letter that way, according to whatever schedule you set up for yourselves. And it will matter. It's really a very important thing to do.
What happens if you get no response at all from a letter like that?
Well, that's a good question. How many people I assume there was such an actual letter?
400 people, 0 response.
Wow.
Okay. What was the message? Do you remember?
It was basically outreach season, and we were making a pitch to say, okay, outreach booths aren't free, and we're sort of talking about our whole outreach campaign, and basically flat out asked our members, if you think outreach is important, we were asking for even a small donation, $5 or $10. This was a couple of years ago. I don't remember all the details, but it was it was outreach was the main, and our outreach booths, and going to county fairs and Old Home Day and all that. We got 0 response.
Did it in anywhere articulate we need so many dollars for?
Yeah, but we talked about the average cost of what these booths cost and all the things. There's table rental, insurance. These aren't free, and the kind of returns we were getting. I don't know if this was an election year or not, but I covered that this is what your money is paying for, and this is how and I think we only needed to raise like $2,000. It wasn't for the year. It wasn't a huge amount.
Yeah.
So I think we did a reasonable job of lowering the barriers and the objections, but it was a big mailing. We did it to it was like 400 people. It was a pretty big mailing for us.
If you want to send me the letter, and I'll look at it and see if I can have any suggestions. But ultimately, the market has spoken to you. Either they didn't like the message, or put it in the way the message was presented. I can't say offhand. It may be that outreach booths themselves. Has anyone else done a fundraising letter on outreach booths like this? So we don't have any data on it. But it just maybe it doesn't get people jazzed. Now,
that's what our interpretation was. Okay, clearly the members don't want us spending our money on this, and so that's what we communicated to the members.
We haven't done outreach booth specific, but we have done appeals to raise money for the insurance policy specifically, and that's usually very successful. We usually knock it out pretty quick without even a letter. Like just, hey, on Facebook, just boom, we need $1,000 to get our policy or whatever. And
Try that.
I certainly think you have an opportunity here to share with each other your successes and what messages work. What messages work consistently the best for us are ballot access. They want to see candidates on the ballot. And that is always the biggest fundraising appeals that we have. 5 minutes left to go. Okay. So, and you made me think of another point that's slipping my mind about fundraising. Maybe it'll come back to me. So, anybody else have a question on fundraising? Yeah.
In Nebraska, we're always going for ballot access, getting signatures every year. This is like the first time we don't have to do it. And we're just kind of like, well, what now?
Success!
So now we just have to get 5% of the vote, and we don't have to deal with it anymore. And I heard outreach booths, that's something we're kicking around.
But do you have any ballot access expenses coming up, or things, or
Just
taking
getting-
advantage of that by recruiting candidates? Or
We're looking at getting candidates now, but it's like, that's all our email discussions have been about, is where do we go? Because everything, we've just been so obsessed with ballot access.
Yeah, that's good. So let's ask people here, what other fundraising letters have you put out, other than ballot access, that got a good response? Yeah.
If you can find somebody who's willing to match, you get
That was what I was gonna say.
huge return. We had
Yes.
in one of the hardest times for non-charity fundraising, that the month of December is very difficult
Yeah.
because you're competing with everybody who's trying to get their tax write-offs, they're trying to buy all their Christmas presents and all that. We raised in 30 days $6,500 to match a $5,000 donation.
Outstanding. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the one that had slipped my mind. Matching funds work really great. How did you get your matching donor?
We just had somebody who had a CD maturing that his wife didn't know about. And so he said, hey, I've got this money.
Are you a divorce attorney?
No. But
This is being taped.
that's why I didn't say the name of the person. But he said, yeah, if you're able to get,
So did he offer it, or did you solicit him?
I have a personal relationship with the person, so I knew.
Okay.
So it was one of those where
You
the
smelled
politics-
cash.
Yes, I smelled green, and I pounced.
Okay.
But but the deal was you had to get at least $5,000, or you didn't get it done. From him.
Exactly.
And that's the key, because if you do that, well, if you give 10, he'll give 10. It doesn't really go anywhere. But when you have an
Exactly.
absolute
A goal.
Yep.
A goal. That is
It's like Kickstarter for
Right.
movies.
yeah.
Like they have a
Yeah.
goal that you have,
It
if you
won't
don't reach
happen
that goal,
unless
then
we
you don't
hit
get
it.
anything.
Excellent. I'm glad you brought that up. Pat, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think the most successful fundraising letter we ever did back in 2006 was to retain our executive director. And
Okay.
I believe that brought in 48K.
Wow. Of course, Texas is a mighty big state, but that's great. That's an outstanding result.
Yeah.
And I guess people wanted that, didn't they?
Yep.
They said they
Mhm.
wanted that. So,
It wasn't really a letter, it was more just personal contact, show them what the result would be. And I did fundraising over 3 months for moving billboards, mobile billboards, and showed them what it would look like.
yeah,
And it got $9,000 in 3 months.
great. So, obviously you guys have a huge opportunity. You're not competing with each other, right? You're fundraising in your own state. So I encourage you to share and ask each other what's working. One other thing I'll touch on quickly is what's called development, which usually, it has different meanings, but one meaning is retaining those big donors especially. Personal, picking up the phone. Your state chair in a really well-run party knows who your top donors are and is on the phone, or someone from your party is on the phone regularly with those donors. They are the ones who will often be the matching fund, and you can suggest it to them. Keep in touch with them, let them know what you're doing, hear what they have to say, and once in a while say, hey, could you be the matching donor for this project we're going to do? If you find that it's something they're excited about, and now you've got a matching fund campaign. So it's a great opportunity. Are we out of time, Brett?
Yes.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Up around.